Hey everyone, welcome back to the Unconnoisseurs of Jazz. Tonight's album, we're going to talk about one of Europe's most influential jazz musicians, known for his distinctive trumpet sound and his contributions to modern and avant-garde jazz. Born in Poland in 1942, Thomas Stenko began playing the trumpet as a teenager after initially studying the violin. Inspired by American jazz greats, he quickly developed a unique style characterized by lyrical melodies, emotional intensity, and adventurous improvisation. Stanko passed away in 2018 after a battle with lung cancer, but his innovative artistry and unmistakable trumpet voice left a lasting influence on generations of jazz musicians. So, join us for our discussion tonight on the Thomas Stanko album, the Thomas Stanko Quartet, Soul of Things.
Welcome, everyone.
Welcome. It's good to see you guys.
I thought you were going to tell me you forgot to hit record.
Nope.
You guys are crazy. But let's start the recording. Huh?
Yeah, let's go. Oh, my goodness. So here we go. Let's talk about Thomas Stanko Quartet. What do you say we get started with clips?
Excellent idea.
Just in case our listeners haven't heard or didn't put it in their ear, let's play a little bit of music for them. Drew, who do you have queued up first?
Matt, I think I've got you.
Awesome. Good. My clip is from song number 3, variation number 3. I found it interesting this week that he named them in variations. So you got 13 songs, variation 1, variation 2, variation 3, all the way to 13.
Would you explain that before we begin then?
No, go ahead.
This was written as a suite. Unlike a jazz typical album where there's a bunch of different songs, he's written it as one complete concerto. And in his press releases for many of his albums, he says this: I've been playing the same song my whole life. There's just different variations to how this comes through. The second piece of this is he has gathered everything that he has done for movies or for television programs, and you will listen to these songs with different motifs from each one of those. So this is a representation of everything that he's already done. Thus, it's his suite or his concerto with his Polish trio. We'll talk more about why it's the Polish trio later.
You could call it the soul of things, the soul of his things.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And so by breaking it up, he said, it's just easier to play the music and name them all later. Doesn't that sound like a free jazz kind of guy?
He got really creative with his naming structure.
Yes.
Variation 1, variation 2.
Soul of Things, variation 1 through variation 13. So you wanted variation 3.
Number 3, please. Yes, start right from the beginning. Play me about just the first minute. I've been saying lately, because I printed it out, when you compare music, you lose the joy of listening to it. So tonight, I'm not going to compare, but I am going to tell you that that song reminds me of another song that we've covered. And it's funny because I'm looking at the page now, episode number 23 on the countdown. The Jazz Top 100 Countdown featured Herbie Hancock's album, The New Standard. And the very first song on that track, New York Minute, has the same beat structure. Bum, bum, ba-dum. Bum, bum, ba-dum. And every time that I listened to this track, it reminded me of The New Standard by Herbie Hancock. Also, to go along with that, right after episode 23 came episode 24, which is the first time we heard Thomas Stanko, because it was the Comedic Quintet, the album Astigmatic. So I have a lot of great feelings about, and I really love Herbie Hancock's New Standard, but this one brings me back to those super early days of the channel and of listening to music. And it just gives me a good feeling every time I listen to it. You know, if you would drop in 10 or 15 seconds of New York Minute by Herbie Hancock.
It takes you right to that song, doesn't
it? It takes me right back to that song. And again, you know, starting off the journey, and we were only 23 weeks into the journey. Everything is brand new, and I just had all those great feelings every time I listened to Stanko's song, knowing that Comedic Quintet was the next album that we did, even, and how fun that album was, and learning about Thomas Stanko. So, well, thanks. Yeah, thanks for doing that for me. I appreciate it.
Hey, Matt, explain to me how Thomas got the B sounding stuff going on with the trumpet.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and you've got it right there. You're moving your fingers. It's called a trill, and what it is, it's a high rate of movement between two notes, and you can you can trill it really super fast, or you can slow the trill down a little bit. It would be like playing two consecutive notes on the piano, you know, and some of the lead players, some of the upper register players, they'll actually shake between notes or lip slur between notes, and get those, and they do it really fast and really cool. I could never do that. I couldn't do it. I couldn't shake between notes. I could trill, but I couldn't shake. So yeah, that's how Thomas does it. It's just a quick succession of notes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Who's next? Who's clip? Drew, who you got next?
I'm going to pop up Dad's.
All right.
Hey, wonderful. Let's do variation number 11, starting at 2 minutes.
I'm going to stop it there. I'm running these a little long because I want to, there's so much emotion that happens and you just don't want to cut it off mid emotion. And I just did, but you got to feel it, baby. You got to feel it.
Yeah. So I like this track because, first of all, it gives the flavor of Thomas and his ability and his tone. His trumpet playing is just impeccable. And because the blending of the other musicians, their craftsmanship is just superb. But the blending of the different musicians I think comes alive in this particular track. But we've said before, this album, it's hard to choose which track to really go with, and so I chose this among at least three or four or five others, or variations from 1 to 13.
Yeah. Yeah,
So-
I honestly, there's weeks that it's difficult to pick a clip because it's easy to pick a clip. We could talk about any section of any variation and find something awesome to say about it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, Drew, you've got a clip you want to play?
I do. I'm going to go to Soul of Things, Variation 13. And as I said, as a collection of things, it was a suite. And so I thought, how does the suite end? You've watched the play, you've watched the movies. It all comes to a nice little ribbon at the end somehow, or maybe it doesn't, but most stories have happy endings. And so to me, I went towards the end, but I had to take into account some of the things that you'll have on the slides, Matt, that you're going to talk about in a little bit, and a lot of things that you read about Thomas Stanko. The Miles Davis sound, the sparse use of his instrument, and then the trio that's backing him. They'd been playing since 98, so these kids were not new. When he picked them up, and I didn't realize this until later reading, he had worked with them for several years, mentoring them, and then chose him as the quartet. The backing of that then means that these guys have learned, studied, and mastered his sound and worked with him. So when you stop playing, or he stops playing, they just keep on going. He'll catch up. And then the lyrical sounds of Chet Baker. So much of this was mentioned back and forth. So Variation 13, I'm going to start at 1 minute. He has been doing a solo, just out on his own. What is that, a soli? So it's not a solo, it's just him playing. And then the band finally comes in. So the way in which they blend is beautiful. So I'm going to start that.
It could be a credenza too.
Yes.
Sometimes those are called credenzas, where the instrument has its own timing and rhythm, and he can do whatever he wants for however long a solo is what we would call it, but in symphonic and concert band it would be called a credenza.
There we go. Thank you for that term.
Sure.
I don't want to stop. Oh man.
It's got a feel to it, doesn't it?
It does. And as much as I've talked about it in the last weeks and months, I love to sit down with the flugel and just play. I may not be in a key, but I'm working on minors. So okay, I'll just play. I can only play the minor notes or whatever leads me into the neck. And you sit down and you look up and 15 minutes has passed and I'm just blowing my horn. And it's fun to do that. It's even more fun when you know what you're doing, like Thomas is doing here. But right before the band jumps in, you almost hear the horn come away as if he's leaning over to look at the guys, and then he begins to play. And to me, That's that moment where you're on the bandstand or you're in the studio and you get that look. It's time for us to come in. And without issue, without constraint, they begin. The last piece of my pick here, I love those floor toms. There's something so resonant about the bass that's happening, almost like a kettle drum, but you know it's a floor tom. And I just love those sounds, period. So,
Well, I'm gonna attempt to read the quartet names so that I can talk about your clip a little bit. But Thomas Stanko, of course, is on trumpet. Marcin Wasilewski is on piano.
Vasilevsky.
Vasilevsky. Slavomir Kirkovitz is on bass, and Mikhail Miskovitz is on drums. And because of your clip and what you said about the toms, Mikhail Miskovitz, the drummer, he is
me how.
Okay, me how.
I did the whole
You
pronunciation
how,
thing.
how.
I almost did a photo friend for a Polish guy and said, "Hey, how do you pronounce these things?" I almost did. He was not at the bike shop today, or I would have had him read off the names. Sorry,
But his sparse use of a lot of drums gives the ambiance of this album of just, I mean, just completely dark and ominous, and I don't want to say spooky, but man, his use of drums, the sparse use of drums, let's put it that way, gives this album an amazing feeling. And Marcin, the piano player, I listened to the album this week as it's a Marcin album and not a Thomas Stanko album, because I wanted to hear how his use of space as well, leaving space for the other three musicians to play in between or playing in those spaces is what he does. But what an amazing quartet.
Yeah.
So
what I'm curious about, and I never did get to it because I had a line of other albums, what did that trio sound like? Because they were recording before he brought them in. What would it have been like to sit and listen to that trio? And if you go onward, and I'll mention the album now, there's a guitarist that they played with. Forever Young is the album. Jacob Young is the artist, and that was, that trio with a sax player and the guitarist. Forever Young by Jacob Young. To hear the trio in that manner, they have a sound that they are hired for. That is them. And so Thomas just lays it right on top of what's already a beautiful, beautiful tone.
So is Jacob Young that album? Is Thomas on that album?
Thomas is not, no. But it's the trio. Okay. Trio with a sax player.
Okay, all right, gotcha.
So I came across that because I was digging back into the albums that I'd listened to, and if you like this, then you might enjoy Robert Young, a guitarist. Jacob Young.
Jacob Young, yeah, all right, gotcha.
So.
Gotcha. Well, just as I've said for 128 weeks now, I'm going to say it again. Whatever you do, do it to jazz. You're going to hear in our week in music coming up just very shortly. That's pretty much what we do. We listen to jazz albums all week long. We talk about them, we rate them, we review them in hopes that you enjoy the album as much as we do that we're talking about tonight. Of course, we are using the list from Nate Chinnon's book called Playing Changes. It's Jazz for the New Century, Playing Changes by Nate Chinnon. And that book is available at your local bookstore and at Amazon.com. If you want more information and don't want to buy the book, which I think you should anyways, you can go to playingchangesbook.com/essential albums and read more about his reasoning and why he picked these 131 albums. Now, in the book that I've got 129. In the book that Drew's got, he's got 131. Dad, you got 131 too, but it still says 129 on playingchangesbook.com. So don't be confused there. So far, we're in the year 2002. So far, we've covered Ben Allison, Peace Pipe. I went back to that album today because I missed it. Tim Burns, Science Friction, Keith Jarrett Trio, Luciana Souza is who we talked about last week, Brazilian Duos. And of course, this week, Thomas Stanko Quartet, Soul of Things. just a brief bio about Thomas. This was such an amazing week for me. It was so easy to put the slideshow together. I got a few more bullet points than I normally do, but Thomas was inspired by Ornette Coleman, Miles Davis, John Coltrane, and George Russell. Now, in my opinion, one of those four isn't like the other. George Russell's a great, it's great to be influenced by George Russell, but you name him with Ornette Coleman and Miles Davis and John Coltrane. Yeah, he's the oddball out there, in my opinion.
It's weird because Miles is.
Yeah.
It's yeah. I was going to read something when you're done with that. Sorry.
No, go ahead. If you're ready, do it.
So he formed his first band in 1962. A lot of those inspirations were the work of Coltrane and Ornette Coleman. George Russell, because of the chromatic, the LCC, the Lydian chromatic concept, and his far-fetched ideas. But the silence in 62 was coming from what Miles did, leaving it spacey. He also took a lot of inspiration from Don Cherry, which is where his free jazz in those early years came from. 1962's band was the Jazz Darings. Do you have that on the slide?
No.
Jazz
No.
Darings, Darings, Jazz Darings. I'm not going to try to pronounce their names because I didn't research and do the pronunciation on them. However, this group, Jazz Darings, is often cited by music historians, which will be us one day, as the first European group to play free jazz. So Thomas Stanko was the early innovator and mover of free jazz in Europe. That has a lot to be said about the clips that we just listened to. How do you go from Ornette Coleman free jazz or the spiritual movement of John Coltrane or George Russell's City of Glass to playing what we just listened to? And that gives a lot of credit to Stanko's ability to change and grow, which is where I would almost give more credit to Miles in later years. Those are all kind of the innovators of music.
Yeah.
You guys got it covered.
Wow. Yeah, that was deep, dude. That was amazing.
I was inspired by if you Google Thomas Stanko, one of the first pictures that comes up on images of him is him holding his trumpet next to his head with no t-shirt on. And so what kind of guy is this? And I'll put a picture of that on screen right now. And I'm like, really? So how did you get to such a mellow lullaby kind of song? These are those dark, moody, have a glass of wine in the evening next to a fireplace and to that picture.
Yeah.
So,
right. Because it would be something Miles would do.
Yeah.
It would be something Miles would do.
It's freedom for improv kind of stuff.
I like that word, freedom, because on my very next bullet point, he believed that jazz was a message of freedom.
Oh,
Thomas did.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he was born in Poland in 1942 during the war. He grew up in the post-war era. So he was, I'm sure he heard it from his parents, everything negative and just about the war. And he wanted to be free. He wanted a more freeing experience, and he believed that jazz was a message of freedom.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Suspended Night was his third album, was rated one of the best-selling jazz albums of 2004. I found that very interesting as well. Not because it's not a great album, but man, it made the list as one of the best-selling albums of 2004.
Yeah.
I wish I would have been paying attention to jazz back then. In my opinion, his sound is unmistakable. He's just got an unmistakable tone of his horn, of his trumpet. I was listening to the radio station today, and Nels Petter Mulvar came on. And I knew that it wasn't Thomas because Nels has a different sound than Thomas. Same kind of music, kind of almost, but I'm like, yeah, no, that's not Thomas. I know Thomas this week, and it's not him. So again, I mentioned it in the intro to the episode tonight, but we covered Christoph Kamita, A Stigmatic album at number 76 on the Jazzwise Top 100 Countdown. So I love getting back into Thomas. I was really hoping he'd be on this list that we could cover, and sure enough, man, we get him in the year 2002. Of course, in March of 2018, he passed away of lung cancer. So I don't remember reading anything about him being a smoker or anything. So I'm sure he's one of the unlucky ones.
He left all that behind for health. He wanted to be a healthy individual. So I got rid of the, I think he's quoted as, I got rid of the smoke and the drink and lived a healthy life. So to pass of lung cancer was definitely a bad deal.
Yeah, for sure.
So, by the way, he listened to music as a kid on an illegal broadcast. Do you know which one that was? Do you remember talking about this?
What was it? It was the U.S. V-Disc.
It wasn't. The V-Discs were part of the time, but it was the Voice of America radio programs that the U.S. State Department had put together, and they broadcast into the communist countries, which of course makes German realize that this could be a communication tool, which is why so many of those under siege countries eliminated jazz music. But Miles happened to be one of the cats that was playing on the Voice of America jazz programs. We talked about this during V-Discs and the union strikes in the 40s and why vocal became a big deal. And so Voice of America was a program that ran for many decades. Many people listened to that.
So you're just going back, just like I am this week, back to Christoph Kamita. And
Yep.
Yeah.
1966, Christoph Kamita's A Stigmatic.
Yeah. Very cool, man. That's awesome. Good fact.
And by the way, today is July 21st, when we're recording this, and this will come out in a week from now. However, I do want to indicate this, that he was born on July 11th, 1942, and he passed away on July 19th of 2018. So July could be Thomas Stanko month for us. Just like 5/4 is Dave Brubeck Day, July could be Thomas Stanko month for us. I'd do a whole month of Thomas Stanko music.
I'd do. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. For sure. I think he's got enough out there that we could probably make it last a whole month, too.
He does.
So I put a quote up here by Thomas. And, it's funny because as not a big of a fan of Chet Baker as I am, I really love Thomas's sound. But Thomas said, Chet was indeed my first trumpet love, followed by Miles. I've also been affected by Brownie, Kenny Durham, Fats Navarro, and Booker Little. Max Roach as well. So he threw in all those trumpet players and then put a drummer in there.
That was kind of like the bumps.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, but think about those early years on Voice of America. Max would have been cutting all of those things. He would have been a sound and a driving force. He and Art Blakey.
And Fats. They would have played Fats.
Oh yeah.
So I don't know. I love the quote because I'm not a huge Chet Baker fan, but if Thomas likes him, I better like him too, because I don't want to bix another another score. Nope. Well, hey, I just want to say thank you for letting me do that brief bio. It's always fun putting the information together. It helps me remember information weeks and months and years from now, hopefully, about the artist. While we're here, I just want to tell you that we've got a website, theunconnoisseur.com, where you can find out more information about us and about why we do this. Our radio channel, WTUR.org, is a 24-hour jazz radio channel. I invite you guys to plug that into your browser or in your smartphone and check out jazz 24 hours a day on our radio channel. The Unconnoisseur merchandise is also available on our website. There's a merchandise link where you can buy t-shirts and coffee mugs and mouse pads and everything else with the Unconnoisseur really cool logo. If you just want to listen to us and you don't want to see our smiling and beautiful faces, you can always go to our podcast at Amazon, iTunes, and Spotify. I'm almost caught up on Spotify with the podcast. Got about 10 more to upload, and then Spotify will be all caught up with our current episodes. But since you're here at YouTube, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button so that you get notified of when our new episodes come out.
Good.
And that's all I'm going to say. So
Perfect. Well,
let's get back.
I was going to say, let's get back to the Simple Acoustic Trio with Thomas Stanko being the quartet of this. I'm throwing that in because that's how they referred to themselves in the years that they were being mentored by Thomas. The Simple Acoustic Trio. Can you imagine that? Hey, tonight on stage, we've got the Simple Acoustic Trio. Come on up, guys.
Let us hear what you got.
Did you guys, by any chance, go to the album September Night?
Oh, unfortunately, I had already been there.
Okay.
That was not a new hat for me.
Okay. I wanted to listen to everything that this quartet had done together, which is why I say it's listed as Polish quartet, not to be confused with his New York quartet that did Thomas Stanko Quartet. September Night didn't come out until 2024, but it was recorded live in 2004. So I went off to that one pretty quick. This album that we're talking about tonight, just mind-boggling. It was so simple, so clean, so easy, easy to listen to. 74 minutes of music went by pretty quick. I'm going to guess that somebody might say that there wasn't a whole lot of variation in the music. However, for me, it was so simple and easy that it was just mindless to sit and turn on, and you could walk away from everything. Let Calgon take it away, or Downey take it away, whatever that commercial was. It just kind of floated everything away. I loved it. I love this album.
It put me in a great mood every time I listened to it. And I hate to say this because I tell people not to, but this is the kind of album where you can jump out for a few minutes and finish your work project and jump right back in, and you don't feel like you've either missed something or, you know what I'm saying, right? It's not background music, and if you listen intently, you're going to hear a lot of cool stuff, but it's not the kind that you have to listen every single second. That's the cool part.
One of the reviewers said something similar to that, but also said because of its captivating vibe, you don't want to walk away from it.
Correct.
So you don't have to listen intently. You don't have to stay committed, but you also feel an obligation because, this is only getting better.
Well, and you're afraid you are going to miss something.
Oh, yeah.
But after the fifth or sixth listen through, it's pretty easy to go finish your work project, that email or something that takes you a minute or two, and then jump right back in. I do have a question though, and I don't mean to put anybody on the spot, but on the Wikipedia page for the Soul of Things album, right under the reception, there's only one short little sentence. It says this album ranked number 97 in JazzWise's the 100 jazz albums that shook the world list on December 7th, 2021.
Bull crap. I can't. Not without pausing. I have a spreadsheet that has all of them compared side by side.
No, I got my magazine right here. Oh, well, we did 2020. That's why.
Oh, okay, that's right. So in 2021, and it very well could have been.
I didn't realize that JazzWise did a list every year.
I thought it was every other year or every.
Well, they did one in what, 99, 2006. Now, those were publications. Those were special publications in those years. So they may have a yearly list.
John?
Yeah,
Put
John.
it in.
Oh,
Put it in publication every year, John.
yeah.
That'd be John Newey for those of you who
I was
don't
going
know
to say John Newey.
Jazz Watts. Yeah, let's put it in publication every year, bud.
Mhm. So my
Well, I can't cover
reflection,
100 albums a year.
yeah,
Yes, we can. We can double up.
Dad, what were you going to say?
my reflections. First of all, one of you guys said it's easy listening, and years ago, there was, come on, everybody, let's jazzercise. You remember that?
Yes.
Well, this is not jazzercise kind of music, though I could picture uh, doing maybe yoga or Tai Chi with this music,
Meditation.
meditation
Yeah.
type of music. Yeah. Sit in a recliner with a cup of tea or chai tea at Tall Rabbit and have this music in your ear and just kind of veg right there. So, yeah, calming with the flow that just kind of grabs you and takes like Drew, you said, Calgon, take me away.
Yeah.
Now, track number 10 or variation number 10, there's a section in there that it's stark, it's reality. So that would wake you up out of your meditation. But I appreciated the blending that comes here with these musicians. So that's kind of my reflections on the album overall.
So let me ask you a question, both of you. Did you get the feeling that it was music for movie music? Not necessarily folly, but could you picture a movie or what while you were listening to clips? I couldn't personally, but I remember reading something about the cover, the artwork, the album artwork. I don't remember where I read it from, but it was based on a television show or a movie that had the cover art something very similar. So we didn't talk about the cover art during my presentation, but I love the artwork on Solo Things anyways, but I didn't get the feeling that it was movie music per se, but I want to
interject some of this here though, because I want to step away from American jazz, from American movies, and step into Polish. What are we watching? What are we seeing? And if some of it is this melancholic tone, if some of it is these dark or cinematic atmospheres, this is the kind of music that plays in the background of Don Corleone. These are the kind of songs that play out in sad or somber moments, or maybe not joyous, but I'm thinking Footprints in the Sand. I'm walking down the beach into that. I'm looking at the cover on the other screen here. I'm walking down the beach at a sunset, and I'm kind of playing this romantic thing. I've got a scene on the beach that's ending with wine glasses, or you're definitely not watching New York City get buried in heavy rain to this, but you're sitting on the coast. And so I think some of the cinema may be that. And I looked at the cover, and I'm like, that's like Chariots of Fire or something. And then you realize it's the backside of somebody's head, not a chariot running. So I can picture that from dark and cinematic, but not romantic, not comedy, and definitely not action.
Okay. Dad, what about you? Could you picture in movies some of the music?
It's funny, but your mama likes to watch some of the whatever the channel for Lifetime movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see it in that kind of frame or that kind of framework.
Hallmark movies.
Yeah, Hallmark movies. Definitely. Yeah. That's where I'd be coming from with it. Yeah.
Would you recommend Thomas to a brand new jazz listener?
I would, but I would suggest, especially if the person is a trumpet player, or a flugelhorn player, definitely I'd say, hey, yeah, here's a musician that you really need to listen to if you want to listen to fine performance of a wonderful trumpeter. Yeah. What about you?
Yeah, I feel sad because he wasn't on my top 10 list.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean,
yeah,
he easily could have been one of the top 10 best.
So you had top 10 trumpeters. Now you can go to top 10 European trumpeters.
That's right. Yeah.
Because then you've got so many others to choose from that are just banging names. So he could be at your top 10 list there.
The European.
Yeah.
I would recommend this. I really would. And I think about it just much like EST. When you think about how wonderful EST is and the joy of listening to it, the accessibility, and I think as a trumpet player, that's what I enjoyed the most. There's nothing that he played that I couldn't perceive myself playing until you try to play it. And of course, whoops, I was wrong.
Yeah.
The timing was impeccable. The downtime, the silence, beautiful. And so I think that's where people would be able to approach it a little easier. To which they might say, how's this called jazz? This is more easier listening to.
Mm-hmm.
But then you got so many other great albums from him to go back and dig into.
Well, I want to respond to that. I think what sells me on this being jazz is the drum work.
Mm.
And the way I don't have the guy's name in front of me, but he's beating out a jazz rhythm.
Yeah.
And that's what I picked up. So
no,
I would say, hey,
I didn't question it. I didn't question it this week. There are some weeks where
I'm thinking first time listener goes, huh? This is jazz?
It's jazz. Okay, I got you.
Yeah.
No, but going back to Herbie Hancock's New Standard.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you start a rhythm like that and not maintain it? I found it interesting. Yeah. It was jazz, baby.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I'm surprised.
I'm a little bit mad. I know that his name is first on the album. It's Thomas. It's a Thomas Stanko album. I wish the mix of the album was just a little less trumpet player, though, to allow the whole quartet to shine a little more than I felt like in certain parts it was the trio in the background and Thomas all up front, and it was all you should concentrate on. But if again, I mentioned it early, I listened to it the other way this week from the piano player's point of view, and wow, what if this was the piano player's album? I want to hear what he's doing and how he shines on the album. I'm a little bit mad at the mix because there are albums that are created where they're all superstars and you can't put one volume level above the other. And all three of the other players are superstars in their own right, but yet Thomas comes through the loudest all of the time. And again,
and I would have to say that you don't get a whole lot of solos from anybody else either.
Correct. And that when they do solo, that's sparse.
Yes.
It's maybe 12 bars or 16 or 18 bars, but nothing much more than that. And again, I'm being very, very critical, very nitpicky on the album because in my score, But after 128 weeks, I feel like I can be a little nitpicky and say I wish I had a little less Thomas volume-wise on the album. His tone unmistakable. His note choice unmistakable. But so can I go ahead and rate? Are we ready to rate?
Rate it.
Okay.
Tell me.
All right, here we go.
Before I change your mind, because I will sell you on something.
No, you won't, because I hard-coded my score early this week. I already knew what I was going to give it. I did not change my mind. The craftsmanship was all there. The awareness, the creativity was there. The spirit this week for me, the emotion is the big thing that got my score. I gave Thomas Stanko Quartet 9.5. I couldn't go to a 10 just for the very reason that that every time I listened to it, I thought, man, just turn him down just a notch. He'd have gotten that extra half a point, a full 10. If I could have heard more piano, more drums occasionally, and more bass every once in a while.
That's a righteous score.
9.5.
Good.
Dad, what about you?
Hey, I'm at a 9 with this album, and I enjoyed it all the way through. And I find the creativity high, the awareness, the blending of it all, the spirit, the drive behind it, especially the craftsmanship. I scored that at a 10. So overall, a 9 here, and I feel real good about that score.
Did you play any songs for Mom? Was Mom able to hear any of these?
No, I didn't this time. No.
I just would be curious to see how she liked it. A true unconnoisseur who hasn't spent 100 weeks with us talking about jazz.
Yeah. I'll play some of it for her.
Yeah. See what
she says.
Like 7 Days of Falling.
You know what? She might latch on to it.
Yeah.
All right, Drew. What about you? What was your score like this week?
For me, this was kind of a simple one. Because of Krzysztof Kmita, because of the understanding that we went through for Astigmata and Polish jazz, we found him early. So I've had a chance to really listen. I went through and listened to a lot of other things as well. You know, this group, Soul of Things, Latania, which was a different grouping, but that was the music of Krzysztof Kmita. I also listened to the tribute music and albums that were out there, the tribute songs and albums for Thomas Stanko. And to hear the reverence that they play of was the reminder of why he was who he was. To know that he came out of free jazz and he ends up playing some of the smoothest, easiest, approachable music. He is one of those few people like Roy Hargrove that you could start to hear. I'm not comparing the two. Roy's got a soul that you can hear. He bears it. But you can hear the tone, the feeling, the mood in which Thomas Stanko played. And in these albums, you hear those. Now, this was, 12 years before his passing, so there was a lot of other music as well. But I listened to a lot of Thomas Stanko this week for a reason. The Soul of Things was a 10 to me. That's my rating. Now, the live album that they did a year later, which was Suspended Night,
yes,
10 out of 10. I couldn't find a problem with any of the albums that this Polish quartet did. I loved listening to their music. It was just amazing. Here's what I said for Suspended Night. ECM did it again.
Yeah.
You take your equipment out and say, hey, I'm going to record this concert. You hit record on the machine, and you come up with one of the most brilliant albums. It's an incredibly talented group of people to be playing, but for them to be able to record that, ECM, I mean, there's just something to be said. If I ever worked for a recording company, ECM would be it, because I want to be the guy that goes out to do these things. Yeah, I would stinking love it. We got to record this album tonight. You know ECM sound. You know what they're looking for, and that was captured. And so, ECM with Thomas Stanko, there's a beautiful sound, but there was a large gap of years when he did not record for ECM. So this was his coming back to ECM years, which was spectacular. So going back into our criteria, I have to say that everything was just high on the rating. Craftsmanship, the awareness, that's where I challenge that, because, Matt, I see where you're coming from, and I could almost go back a rating, a half a notch. Were they aware, that trio, did you hear them? Did he play to their strong suits? And if their strength is being the rhythm section for him or for anybody else, then they did their job, and there was some awareness. So I love the album. There.
So a question then for the two of you, the creativity level. How would you respond to the creativity in this album?
I don't think it's handwritten charts. I think it's again improvised jazz, and not free jazz, but improvised jazz where Thomas has an idea, bum 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 ba-dum, and then they work on it and fine tune it, and they all come up with something together. So that the craftsmanship and the creativity kind of go hand in hand there because they're crafting the songs kind of as they
go.
sit there.
Good. Yeah, thanks. I
Not
appreciate
free.
the response.
No,
Right.
But freedom.
freedom.
Yeah. Freedom. Yeah.
And I think that's the important part about that trio behind him.
Did either of you listen to Balladina by
Was that by the quartet?
I'm not sure
It was not.
but
That was in
Okay.
1976.
Oh,
okay.
And Balladonna was his first release on ECM. Is that the one you're talking about?
Yeah. Mhm.
And Matt, the double bassist, Dave Holland. Just saying.
there it is right there. Yep. It's going in my
Fiery free
library.
jazz with striking melodies.
It's going on in my library right now.
It's on my list, Dad. It's on my list.
Good.
But I didn't get to it because I did the 2013 New York era, which Wislawa. That was his New York quartet, but I didn't get to Balladania.
Mhm.
All right, hey, we're talking about albums that come out in 2002. Dad, why don't
True
you
dat,
tell us?
baby.
Why don't you tell us what's new?
What's new?
Hey, I'd like to do that. And let me pull that up right here, right now. The slideshow has some great information. Matt, I appreciate you putting it together for us. And notice, if you will, the album cover. I love that album cover. And I'm not certain that this is the whole population of Newcastle or what. But or if this is the whole group of the musicians on this album, because the list goes on and on and on. So anyway, this is by Katz, Knats, and it's called The Great Day in Newcastle. It's released in May the 1st of this year. There's 9 songs on it. It's only 41 minutes long. And the label is Gearbox Recordings. Now, I will tell you, when I first listened to this album, I was really wondering, is this an album that I want to recommend? And I listened to the poetry at the beginning, and I thought, oh, this is really different, really strange to start an album this way. But then it moves into the music, and it just bang, it just hits you so powerfully. And I found this, and let me read it to you because it'll say much better than I could. Led by 2 lifelong friends from Newcastle, bassist Stan Woodward and drummer King David Ike Ellich. Knats are not the easiest band to pin down to a single genre, and this is so true.
Yes.
I mean, how do you say this is jazz, this is fusion, this is rock? They created their own, and it's called Geordie Jazz, or as they sometimes call it, Geordie Neor, drawing on their Tyneside roots, a Geordie being a person from Tyneside area of northeast England. So we've got this culture coming in. The name captures their edgy fusion of soaring melody, driving danceable rhythm, rock energy, and spoken word poetry. So this is a wild, far out kind of album that I really hope that our followers, our listeners, will take the time, 41 minutes to listen to this album. They're going to like it.
I found it an interesting alternative to Stanko's music this week. You know, it's not that it was boring. Don't get me wrong, but when you needed a pick me up, I went back to to Nats and Great Day in Newcastle just for a completely different flavor in your ear, a completely different taste in your mouth. You know, after you eat so much wasabi, you're ready for an egg roll or for you know, piece of chicken or something other taste than wasabi.
Yeah.
So
One of the other things that I highlight, this town is dedicated to soccer. I imagine that every one of these musicians are soccer players, either that or rugby players. 'Cause
Football.
They are rugged.
Football. After the World Cup, you got to call it football.
Yes, thank you. Football. And Newcastle has a history of its own, coming from mining communities and mining culture and hardworking people. Now, Newcastle has gone through a transformation, basically. This is a hot spot for younger people to go to and enjoy the gatherings and their taverns and their cafes and stuff. And they're almost, you get to feel they're in love with each other.
it's a great day to be in Newcastle.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So the Tyne Bridge is in the background of that photo, crossing the Tyne River. The Tyne Bridge was built in 1928, so we're about to celebrate 100 years of that bridge back there.
Wow,
Just
that's
saying.
great. That's cool.
Yeah.
So thank you for letting me cover this.
It's a good pick.
Thanks for picking the album because I really, like Matt, I really enjoyed the break of music because it's like, okay, cool. What am I in for? And like you mentioned, Dad, the first song, I'm like, what did the old man pick?
Yeah.
And then you listen to the next song and you're like, oh my goodness, I'm a dancing dirge in the background.
You know what? This was the week where I thought, like you, I heard the poetry and I'm like, this is the week he's not going to find a banger. But it ended up being a banger.
Oh, yeah. Good.
Yeah.
Good. I'm glad you guys liked it.
All right, Dad, you're warmed up. Why don't you tell us about your weekend music?
Okay. Let me start by saying I'm reading the book on the Civil War. Okay. And in reading that, one of the chapters talked about the background, what's going on with the soldiers at night. And so I found this song. It's Lorena. And so I listened to the 97th Regimental String Band on the song Lorena. Again, it's banjo, guitar, and a made-up bass. It's a different kind of sound. I also listened to the same group playing Tempin' Tonight on the old campground. So it's just craziness that I thought I'm going to check this out.
Yeah.
So I listened to our friend Miles, 7 Steps to Heaven, and Miles Ahead. And where did I come up with Thad Jones? I don't remember how I came up with Thad Jones.
I still want to know where or why you came up with that. But you sent it out, and I went to it. I'm like, oh, snap. I haven't listened to him in a while. I've listened to him and Mel Jones. And then I came across the album that I sent you. But when you sent that out, I freaked out because I'm like, oh, my goodness. That wasn't on Matt's list either.
Yeah. Right. So I listened to a couple of his albums. Well, Consumption was one of the second one. Now, let me say this now. I'm not done with my week in music yet because last night, yesterday, your mom and I celebrated 58 years of marital bliss. She's been so happily married over these years. I have to.
At least one of those years.
Yeah.
That was the year before we came along.
Yes,
it was.
Happy.
So we were in Shipshewana yesterday, and Kevin Allwise, something like that, is played or sang Neil Diamond.
He's a Neil Diamond tribute singer.
Yeah. Oh my. Oh my. This guy was real. He's an entertainer, and he could do Neil Diamond. Uh, he walked out on the stage, brothers, and I, my mouth almost dropped, thinking, "This is Neil Diamond." Now, I saw him later after the performance. I took a picture of him.
And we'll have those photos up right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, and up close, the resemblance is not quite as clear. But boy, on stage, and when his voice started, oh man,
Yeah.
I mean, people were clapping. We kind of tipped the average age over 75. Okay, because it was a white-haired group. I'll just say that.
Yeah.
Lastly, today I was doing PT for my neck, and my PT was named Jared, and we had a conversation about jazz. His dad was a jazz aficionado. I'm not sure his dad was a connoisseur. I would say probably was. So he mentioned a couple names, and I was like, wow. So of course I mentioned the unconnoisseur.
Of course.
Yeah. So the word is spreading, brothers.
Oh, that's
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, that's pretty much covers my week in music. I'll report next week on a lesson that I'm going to have tomorrow with granddaughter Delaney.
Lady D.
So,
All right.
Yep.
Awesome.
There you go. My week in music. Thank you.
All right. Well, Drew, why don't I go next? Like you, and I didn't mention it because I wasn't putting two and two together. I did Forever Young this week because it had Marcin Wasilewski as the piano player. And so I wanted to dig and rabbit hole into Marcin and see what else he had done besides the Thomas Stanko Quartet. I also did his album Faithful from 2011. So I'm telling you, similar but different enough to where you know it's not a Stanko album. Okay, it's a Marcin Wasilewski album. So the Forever Young album, I mean, why couldn't you rate it as a 10? I would rate it as a 10. The Magnificent Thad Jones, Dad, when you texted that out, that went into my library, into my ear immediately, and I dropped it the same minute that you texted it out. I went to King's Highway from Brian Blade and the Fellowship. I went back to Brian Blade this week. I tell you, when we started the second half of our journey with this list of 131, it took me a minute. It took me a minute because I was so in love with the 100 that we had already done. Yeah. But now that we're 28 weeks into the new list, I'm falling in love with those early artists that we covered in the early days because I'm putting them back in my ear. I'm listening again at a deeper level, at a greater level that I can appreciate it even more. And Brian Blade never, ever lets me down. So anything I listen to by Brian. So, you know, that's really about it. It was the final World Cup game. I have been watching a lot of World Cup this time around. I got kind of engrossed in games that I didn't care about. Some, teams that got knocked out. I don't know. I watched a lot of soccer this time. Yeah. And now that it's over, I'm going to have even more time to listen to jazz. So I'm happy about that. Very happy.
Good. That sounds like a great week.
Yeah, it was a good week.
Yeah.
I thought I was going to learn Spanish because everything that I watched was from Telemundo. So I came out with a whole new appreciation for Spanish. I kind of knew what they were talking about. Now, they were talking fast, but I could watch the game.
Goal!
That was the winning goal. And the announcer said it for like 10 minutes. And I was like, is he going to stop? I mean, the game's in play again. And he takes a breath and starts. So, yeah, I enjoyed Telemundo for that. My week was pretty easy. A lot of Thomas Stanko, and when Dad sent Thad Jones over, I'm like, yep, I'm in. I loved listening to that album, which is why I dug into that more. So it's been a good week. I've listened to a lot of Thomas. We've had a lot of things pieces moving, but my week in music has been music, both playing it, practicing it, listening to it, enjoying it. and I'm reading a book that I will make sure that I put the cover up. It was recommended 100 times. If Joel Fromm said it once, he said it 1,000,000 times. You guys need to listen to Notes and Tones, Music to Music Interviews. And this was Art Taylor. Between 1968 and 1972, he interviewed musicians, and he put his tape recorder down, and he'd say, now, we're doing an interview. Some of them joked with him. It's not really an interview. You're a musician. And he asked a couple of people, is it easier for me to interview you? Well, you know where we are. You know who we are. So these are, some pages are 4 pages long, some are 2 pages long. But one of them is Philly Joe Jones. He's done Ornette Coleman, and that's where I'm at. I'm at 14% reading on my device. Philly Joe Jones says that
Notes and Tones.
By musician to musician interviews by Art Taylor. This was it wasn't done. He interviewed him 1968 to 72, but it didn't come out for a few years after that. But musician to musician, and he got a chance to interview and ask some questions. Miles was one of them. Philly Joe Jones said this: music changes around and changes around. By the way, this was about a question on some great musicians have come out of Philadelphia. And he goes on to say, music changes around and changes around. It takes all kinds of turns, but it always comes back to pure swing. Nothing seems to outlast jazz, the real traditional jazz. You can't get away from it. People like to pat their foot and clap their hands. So as we look at 2000 and newer jazz, you can't get away from swing. People tap their feet, nod their heads, clap on 2 and 4 for a reason. So I love reading this book because it's just a small glimpse into musicians. I don't know if he did, but I'm guessing he's got an interview with Cecil Taylor. That takes me to what's next.
Well, wait. That's the root. That's the root of the trunk of our tree that we talk about all the time in jazz. Swing music is the root that goes down so deep that it holds the rest of the tree up, and all these little branches can come off, and you get Polish jazz, and you get eco jazz, and all these other little minute are supported by that deep root of swing. So I love that quote. I love that quote by Art Taylor.
It was important because
Philly Joe Jones.
That's where we're at. Philly Joe Jones said that.
Yeah.
So 1966, we had an opportunity to listen to an album on our
1960 what?
1960 who?
1960 what? 1960 who?
Oh, Gregory Porter, baby. Gregory Porter.
19. Hey, the motor.
Sorry, I had to do that. I'm not trying to sidetrack. I just had to.
Thank you.
We've done that a lot, though. 1966, we had a chance to listen to an album called Unit Structures, and that was by Cecil Taylor. So what's next on the 2002 list is none other than the Willisaw Concert by Cecil Taylor. It was on Intotech Records, 5 songs, 1 hour, 11 minutes. Came out in 2002. That's what's next. So we're bringing history into the future, or the future being 2002. I mean, here we are 24 years later listening to it. But I'm looking forward to what's next.
Yeah.
A little bit of history, a little bit of present.
Yeah. Yeah, from Cecil Taylor. Yeah. We kind of already know what we're getting into, but yeah. But just like last time on our last list, we told ourselves we weren't going to preview the music before or try and listen to it. I have not. I stayed away from it, and it'll go in my ear first thing in the morning. So
no spoiler ahead, but we're going to listen to Cassandra next week. From all of us to all of you, Matt, I would say this, and Dad, you've been part of this along the way, but when we began this was a Tuesday morning conversation.
Yep.
Wow.
This was just purely the dialogue of what went down. So it's been a good night. And I appreciate
Yes, it
Thomas
has.
Stanko. Y'all go tune into him, Cecil Taylor, the Willisaw concert, and anything else that we've mentioned. We've mentioned 36 albums tonight. So you can tell that whatever we do, it's to jazz.
Yep.
Right.
From our homes to yours, thanks for tuning in. We appreciate y'all greatly.
Have a great week.
Good night.